Welcome to the Cabin Culture Podcast, where we spend a little more time diving deeper into all the fun parts of cabin culture. We like to think of this as both the material and imagined expressions of how cabin lovers, dwellers, builders, and designers wish to live a more simple and authentic life. On this episode, we're talking with Chris and Pam of Dirt and Glass. I almost feel like this duo needs no introduction because if you're here listening to a podcast all about cabins and cabin culture, there's a 99% chance that you already know who these two are. But for that 1%, let me introduce you. Chris and Pam are photographers based in Vermont who have traveled worldwide capturing cabins, cabin culture, and cabin porn through their lenses. With a massive Instagram following of over 350,000, not only do they help owners with incredible photos of their spaces, but also with finding new guests and marketing them effectively. We are so pumped to talk to these two today and hope that you find some of this helpful. Thanks so much for joining us, and here we go. Well, I am so excited to have you all here. We have talked extensively, I feel like, via email and Instagram, but never met in real life. So here we are. This is such a treat.
Yeah, nice to meet everyone.
Yeah, this is crazy.
Tell us where you are right now.
We are in our home in Vermont.
Yep, up in the mountains. Recently purchased a home in the Green Mountains, and
in the actual state forest. It's a dream come true.
It's a dream come true. Yeah.
It feels like when you posted about it and shared pictures, it felt like the perfect place for the two of you to be.
Oh,
it
yeah.
feels. I mean, I've never owned a home, and it's just like instantly, as soon as we got here, I was like, and I'm here.
Yeah. Oh, that's so nice. What made you feel that way about it? For folks who don't know where you're living or what it looks like, can you describe it for them?
It is just, I'm staring at our living room. It's so Vermont cozy. Like when you picture like a tiny, because it's small, like arguably it's small. When you picture like a small cozy home in Vermont, and it's just like, it's kind of funky and it's got like little quirks just like Vermont does. And it's its own thing. And there's a fireplace, there's a wood stove, there's cozy cats curled up on the couch.
Do those come with the house?
Lots of blanket everywhere.
An aggressive amount of blankets. It's wonderful.
But yeah, you just look outside and it's just all forest.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's very peaceful.
Southern Vermont?
Yeah, it's in southern Vermont. We're in Bennington County. So
yeah, so we're in the western southern corner-ish.
Yeah.
Kind of away from a lot.
Yes, far away, far away. We lived under a microscope prior to this in a little city. So this is a treat.
Yes.
Were you guys originally from Western Mass or?
Yeah.
Yeah, both of us. Yeah. Yep. So this is our first time living out of state.
Yes.
I love it. Take us back to, where did you all meet? So you're both from Western Massachusetts. How did your paths first cross?
So we were actually just kind of talking about this earlier.
Yeah.
We met about a year and a half prior to us dating. We were both previously betrothed. So we just kind of like met in passing. And then our paths crossed again, like I said, a year and a half after that, when we were both going through horrendous breakups. And just kind of were like, hey, you want to go hiking? Because that was kind of just like our mutual thing, which was like, oh, I see this cute boy hiking a lot and he seems to be recently single. So am I. So we just kind of like started hanging out. And it just like was an instant click and it was glorious.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's how we met.
It was fun.
It was fun.
You all were you both photographers at that point?
No, I loved photography, but I wasn't. He had like 20 years under his belt at that point.
Yeah, I'd been shooting since 96. So, quite a while.
I was a pastry chef at the time.
What got you started in photography, Chris?
Just the love for it. I mean, I loved creating and capturing nature, especially was what drew me to it. And I used to shoot like the night sky a lot when I was growing up, just on the roof of my parents' house with a tripod and a timer, and up there even during like lightning storms, trying to capture the lightning. And so it was a lot of fun. And back then it was pre-digital cameras, so it was all film. The waiting was pretty exciting, to see if you actually captured it and did it right. So you'd have a roll of film with maybe one that you got.
Did you have your own developing studio?
I went to school at a technical school. I guess that's what you call it. And we had a dark room, and that's where I took photography classes, and that's where I was able to just go in and use it whenever and develop. So I was developing my own film and doing my own enlargements and etc. But I was shooting mostly black and white back then.
So then what you're most well known for now, obviously, is cabins. Like before I even started building Cozy Rock, you all were like, I think the only cabin photographers that I knew about at that point, and certainly the like most well-known, most well-respected in the, if you will, the cabin porn world. How did you go from photographing for fun, for yourself and in school, to then finding this niche and being one of the first ones to really stand out in it?
We took a trip to a cabin pretty early in our relationship in upstate New York. And I brought my camera because it's just what I did. I always had my camera. And we took some photos just while we enjoyed our stay at this off-grid cabin.
Yeah.
And I think it was,
it was pretty immediate.
I wanted to share the photos with the owner for sure.
Yeah, because he was a really wonderful artist based out of New York. And we were like, he's gonna love these. He's gonna be stoked because, Airbnb back in 2015 wasn't brand new, but people were still like not using it hardly as much as they are
not
now.
For cabins and off-grid stays.
Exactly.
And stuff like that.
So we were like, let's help this guy out.
Yeah. So we offered, for photos for continuous stays. And we kind of went back and forth, and each season we were up there taking photos, and then we decided to try and make a career out of it.
Yeah. I mean, after that, it was the black A-frame.
That was shortly after that was with Jeremy Parker.
And that's really kind of
Black
what kicked
A-frame.
things off.
Right. They didn't have an Instagram yet. So when we arrived, we were like, all right, first thing, start an Instagram.
Yeah.
So they started one when we were there shooting.
And I actually don't know where they are at now, but it's crazy.
Oh,
I was going to say, they've come a long way from having no Instagram to where they are.
And they sold it.
Yeah, they sold it as well.
Yeah,
new owners.
So, yeah. So that's where it kind of kicked off. And right after shooting that, we were at Pentemple Farm.
Yeah, and it just kind of whirlwind from there.
Yeah.
So you went to all the big
so
ones,
organic.
They weren't so big back then.
Yeah,
it was kind of, they were looking for a new way to gain eyes on their property, and it kind of, Ben reached out to us from Pentemple Farm after he saw us shooting and posting about a black A-frame, so that kind of went from there.
Yeah.
These are all my favorite cabins on Instagram, and I think I found them all through you.
I hope you get Ben Sargent on here, because I would love to hear him on a podcast.
He's a great character.
Okay, please connect us. We would love to have him on here.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I don't know if you know this, but one of the Maine state mottos is the way life should be. I personally think this is the perfect description of Maine, and I am probably guilty of overusing this phrase. Whenever I visit the cabin, the very first thing I do is head straight for the guest book, because there's nothing I love more than hearing what our recent guests have been up to, where they ate, shopped, hiked, and what they enjoyed most about their stay in Freeport. This is one of my favorite recent entries. The design of the cabin is absolutely fantastic. From the brightly lit and airiness of the windows, the warmth of the stove and the blankets, to the quiet serenity of nature peering in, it has truly been a retreat. So if you're looking to get a taste of this, head to our Airbnb calendar and book your stay. And if you can't find any that work, don't forget to sign up for our email list. This is where we send any last-minute cancellations and where we open each seasonal calendar first. We can't wait to host you. I definitely want to come back to your photography, but in terms of how you've seen the cabin world grow since, like you were saying, when you first started, Instagram wasn't really a thing for cabins. It doesn't mean they weren't there. I think they were still there. It was just a very different kind of like sharing or publication of them. I don't even know how to like it was just harder to find them. How have you seen that world grow in your time? You've seen it kind of firsthand and actually contributed to a lot of the growth. What is your observation about
anytime? I mean, yeah, when we first started, one of the main things we decided to make our focus be is
not gatekeeping
the locations, because that was the thing. When anyone ever did share a really cool cabin on Instagram, there was no way to find out where it was.
Yeah,
really.
That's how it was.
Really hard to find these cabins,
and we're like, well, why isn't there someone sharing them? So let's do that.
Yeah,
and that's kind of where that started. And then it's funny because the way we would share and talk about them, or just like the format we would promote them, you started seeing other people start to do the same thing.
Yeah, especially like you started seeing repost pages. Like there were obviously, you had your Cabin Chronicles, your Cabin Love, Cabin Folk, and Cabin Land. And then there's a few more, like the OGs. But then all of a sudden it was like cabin dot blah blah blah, cabin dot home dot love, and it's just
underscore.
So many. It's like you just started seeing more and more, and like people were like hungry for it. They're like, oh my god, I have to stay here. I can stay here. This is crazy,
right? And
like it was just like a snowball effect.
It really was. And even with the reshare pages, when they were around prior to what we were doing, but whenever they did share any photos of cabins, they were just finding these photos on the internet and posting them. There was no credits to anything.
Yeah.
And it was because there wasn't a thing like that yet on Instagram.
What have you seen are the advantages of this shift in the way that they're being shared so publicly online? And what are the maybe the downsides or the negative pieces of it from your point of view?
Well, the upside is obviously people during a really unprecedented time in the world are able to make money being second homeowners. And this new avenue is opening up where people are able to flex their creative muscle and create a space where people can go and share with people. And it's really exciting. And people that get to stay at these places are excited because then they feel like they're a part of something. Like, oh my God, I saw this place online and now I'm staying there for my bachelorette party. So it's really awesome. It's like this really cool side of the internet that I'm really happy to be on. But for me, I'd say the con is that, second home ownership kind of has its own, there's a lot of battles going on with people in small towns, small communities fighting to even be able to have that anymore. There's people that don't like it. It's quiet neighborhoods and there's too many parties, and there's a lot of a stigma about having Airbnb in neighborhoods.
It's definitely a stigma.
Yeah. It's I mean, it's not true, but I feel like people just hear about it and then all of a sudden they're enraged.
Yeah. So I'd say the only other downside would be not necessarily anything to do with the rental portion of it, but maybe with the boom on Instagram with influencers.
Well, right.
And
some people
scandally clad women just looking
we
for
we don't shame. That's not what we do.
No, but I'm just saying there is a downside to when an owner gets kind of taken advantage of.
Yeah.
Wait, tell me more about that. What do you mean when owners get taken? What should we as owners be keeping an eye out for?
I know that it happens a lot with certain, people will get reached out to by someone who's let me come and stay for free and I'll give you photos. And I've heard plenty of times that those photos are never delivered, or the photos that are delivered have, something that maybe that person's not comfortable sharing on their page.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's such a, not being cabin owners. This is all just things that we've heard from people that we work with, that they just get a lot of crazy requests from people on the internet who think that they get it for free. That's
Right.
all.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even really say that's a negative. That's just a hurdle.
Yeah. Yeah. It's something that you have to navigate and understand what you're seeing and what you're
Yeah,
going to get.
the Instagram culture is kind of crazy. And if somebody's coming to Instagram completely fresh into the social media world, it can be really overwhelming.
Yeah, you're kind of chasing the followers, and then you just end up kind of going down that rabbit hole, and you're not really being selective and thoughtful about who's at the cabin taking these pictures. You're just like, oh, they have 100,000 followers, let's get them in, and you're really not giving it that thought. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you do have to do a little research.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Going back to that note about the community and short-term rentals and stuff like that, that's been around for a while. I remember going to a oddly enough bachelor party in San Diego, and I think the host had mentioned in the notes that the like street had some sort of restrictions, or they were almost ready to implement restrictions because there were so many houses on that street that had just become short-term rental. And it was kind of taking away from the community aspect of that area. But then on the other side, for like these smaller areas, when it's done correctly, I think, or the guests are maybe vetted correctly, that it brings a bunch of tourism and support to smaller local places that wouldn't necessarily have gotten that as well. So it's a weird balance of cons and pros that kind of help and hurt at the same time. And
Right.
I guess hopefully everyone's kind of respecting that and try and lean the way of the pro.
Yeah.
Right. And unfortunately, you're only ever going to hear about the bad situations. So, that's what a lot of people are seeing online and in articles.
Yeah.
Because that's what draws attention. So
That's right. It
And for
feels
you
like
guys-
all of that comes back to the host. And so I'm curious, you've worked with so many hosts. What stands out to you about the hosts that are like truly spectacular? If you had advice for anyone just starting this.
You always get asked this, and you're always answering people.
I mean, these days there's so much that you really have to think about when not necessarily, you could easily just have a really nice home in a nice area and you don't have to put all this effort in. But like, these days the individuality is really important. And I'd say just make it you. Don't look online and think like it has to look like everybody else's. Like, have fun with it,
And you guys are a little bit selective with where you stay as well, right? I mean, in terms of, it's mostly you guys cabin centric. It's got to kind of have this uniqueness.
Yeah.
I mean, there's two sides to that. One is just our availability.
Right. We do have to be very picky.
Right. And we want to represent, unique cabins. That fit us an aesthetic that we enjoy.
Yeah, I mean,
that we want other people to enjoy.
I could get into turnkey cabins, but
when people reach out to you and like, do you check out their current Instagram? Do you look at their Airbnb listing? How do you figure out if a cabin is a good fit?
So we've figured out a way to make it really easy for us. Is we have a form that we send to people who are inquiring, and they get a chance to kind of like explain it. Like they get to say like, what's the most unique thing? Like explain why your cabin is so unique. They send us their Instagram handle if they have one, Airbnb listing, and then they get to describe it, like what makes your cabin unique. I mean, specifically on the form, we say plain white walls need not apply, because it's really hard to make something like that like wow, like how is that wow?
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with it. It's just for us, it's like we want to have warmth and coziness. So we really look for an element where somebody feels like they could sink right in. Like you want to be able to just like melt into the place that you're staying and really feel comfortable. And there is certain aesthetic where that isn't a thing, and that's totally fine, but that's not what we're looking for.
Right. And I mean, a lot of people don't understand exactly what we do, and that's totally, I get it. You know, there's a lot of people that don't see what's going on behind the scenes, and they think we're just rental photography, you know, for hire. And
you're not real estate photographers, right?
Right.
Big difference. Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, you know, we do get a lot of inquiries for turnkey.
Yeah.
And it's just,
which I think,
fortunately,
I think we appreciate in the rest of the kind of this cabin world is, I mean, you guys, you know, all the pictures you're taking, a lot of people look towards your pictures for inspiration for their cabin. So by you guys, you know, being thoughtful and selective about the cabins you're, you know, capturing, I think that's really helpful to the whole community. And you're not just kind of taking pictures of whatever and whoever pops into your inbox. I think that's great.
Yeah.
Well, that's part of your value as a follow, I think, is the curation. I mean, the photographs are beautiful, but the fact that you all curate for us, we don't like, right? Like, you are finding the best. And then tell us a little bit about Cabinpedia, because I think that takes the curation to the next level for people who are following you.
Yeah.
The Cabinpedia was like a pet project of mine that I was like, okay, picture it, you know? And we have a lot of big plans for the Cabinpedia. We want to make it a lot more smooth and streamlined, but it was like we had this beautiful catalog of cabins and we were sharing them on our respective pages. But I was like, I just want a place where somebody can go and they're like, oh, I just really want to go to New York. And then they can click it and like there's everything from broken down by region. And it's like, it was exciting because it was like a way for us to like explain what the cabins were like, and I got to be really like poetic with my descriptions, and it's just so much fun. And it's like, it's a way for us to just kind of like add a little extra love to what we're giving to the cabins. Like,
we want to give them as much as possible. So I mean, having this avenue you know, for people to find them on in addition to the Instagram was only a plus.
So it's like, you know, on our pages you might get a little, just the tiniest sprinkle of our personal life, but then on the Cabinpedia it's just cabins. You just go there, it's cabins, you know what you're getting.
There's definitely the website needs some love. I mean, that's something that it keeps growing and growing and
so if there's any developers out there, hit us up.
Kind of just been doing it on our own. It's like basic HTML.
It's pretty bad.
Okay, I'm a beginner over here, and I thought it was great when I went to it. But it comes to your writing, and I'm biased because you were writing about my cabin, and I was like, oh, that's beautiful. But this leads me to one of my questions. So you all know, I think you know that I run a video production company full time here in North Carolina, and one of the things we obsess about and talk about all the time on our team are the 3 Ps, which are product, process, and point of view. So most small businesses obviously think about product because it is the first thing you have to think about. What am I offering to cabin owners, right? And in your case, it was beautiful photos of their cabin. But then this process piece is the next one. What is the process like of working with you? And I think that's what stood out to me the most about working with you all was that, because at this point, I've now worked with a bunch of photographers who are all great humans and all their photos are beautiful. But the way that you approached process, start to finish, from our first email all the way through what it was like when you were staying at the cabin, what that felt like on my end here in North Carolina, all the way through the final photos and then adding to Cabinpedia, like you have a well thought out process. How did you all approach that? Was that intentional? Is that just who you are as people? Tell us about the process.
I mean, that's a mix of both because I'm obsessive when it comes to work.
Yes.
And I've worked for myself for a really long time. So that has been a top priority.
But I mean, even from the get, we were like, we're taking this seriously.
Right. And we wanted, again, we wanted to make sure we were standing out. When we're at the cabins, like you said, we're shooting, editing, editing, like, just to have some really, you know, really shining photos coming onto our stories immediately.
Yes.
And that's important, you know.
Like within the first couple of hours, we really want it to be like, for you as cabin owners, we want you to see immediate results. Because
y'all, I think we got 2,000 new followers in the 2 days that you were there. I'm not even kidding. Like
that's one of our most favorite things to watch.
Yeah.
I was like, I knew we were going to get good pictures. I knew we were going to update our listing. I knew we'd have good content moving forward. I had no idea that was going to happen in like the 2 days during your stay.
And I'll speak to this right now for cabin owners out there. This is important. You have to have an active Instagram presence prior to having somebody. It doesn't have to be just us, anybody. You have to have a presence there before people are sharing, because people want to see activity.
Yeah, if they click on the link to your Instagram
and you
that
haven't
we're
posted
shooting
in 6 months.
Yeah, there's a few photos of like a dog.
Yeah.
You know, like most of the time people won't follow that account.
Yeah, I'm just because like the follower count going up isn't a guarantee.
No, it never is.
That's not in the contract.
I mean, it's happened with everybody, luckily, knock on wood. But that is important. An active presence is important to see that kind of following.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think maybe you answered it in that description you just gave of your time there. But do you ever, because it's a job and it's your work, is there time to enjoy the space while you're there, or you guys are so focused that
once
really comfortable while we're working?
Yeah.
Once it's too dark and we've edited whatever we wanted to edit to get up that day.
Yes.
So usually by like 10 p.m.
Well, this time of year is really great because, sunset being as early as it is, we're chilling by 6.
Yeah, we'll be wrapping up by 6, 7 o'clock. Yeah. So.
But yeah, no, because it is our job,
Yeah. And
we're not really doing a whole lot. I mean, that's like we could make the time, but we really want to commit as much as we can to getting everything that we can.
Right.
How long is like your ideal stay? Like how many nights would you need to like really get like an idea of, the sunset and the sunrise and kind of maybe weather? If you're only there for like 1 or 2 nights and it's bad weather, I mean, do you have like a minimum night stay or something that you like to shoot for?
Yeah, we usually go for two nights. That gives us the opportunity for 2 sunsets. And especially if we're doing drone, maybe one of those sunsets will focus on drone and the other we won't. But even with the inclement weather, we've learned the best ways to shoot in any type of weather, because obviously we can't reschedule due to weather, because we book out quite a bit. So we've been able to really focus on making the best out of any type of weather.
Yeah.
And we do. I mean, gloomy is beautiful.
Yeah.
Actually, rain makes a lot of the color pop because the darks are darker. Like overcast is great because the light is dispersed evenly, know? So it's like there's a lot of things that people don't understand when it comes to like the photography side of it.
And you find there's like a battle for getting you in a space when it's going to be like a peak season, like fall. Obviously, us also being in Vermont, we know there's like a 10-day window where it's like peak, and then all of a sudden the leaves are gone and it's depressing. And then winter, it's like it could come early, or winter could not come until January. So if we get someone in there and we're like, oh, we're going to take great snow shots, and then it's not even snowing, you're like, oh no, what did we do?
Yeah.
I mean, do you see that?
In the fall, well, actually,
Absolutely.
for all of the seasons, we know, so for fall, we start north and then we travel south. And then in the winter, kind of the same thing. So, we've got, this really great, moving scale of where we shoot.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it is tough with fall because, yes, like you're saying, you never know when that 10-day window will be. It's different every year.
I think last year it was earlier. This year it was later, but it was quicker.
Yeah.
It's crazy. You can't keep up with it.
And even though we book far out in advance, we still tend to get pretty lucky with especially with fall foliage. Snow last winter was really good.
Surprisingly.
And even when there's no snow, we work some magic.
Yeah.
Hey guys, this is Justin from the Chalet. If you're not already listening to this podcast in a cabin or on your way to one, I'd just like to take a second to let you know that our spring calendar is open, along with a few winter nights to get that last minute ski trip in before the season ends. I'd also like to remind you that our A-frame comfortably sleeps up to 6 guests. We're located just 10 minutes to Mount Snow, 15 minutes to Stratton Mountain, and we're surrounded by tons of trailhead access, including the famous Long Trail. Oh, and the food and drink scene here in Vermont is incredible, since most of it's either raised, crafted, caught, or brewed locally, so you definitely don't want to miss out on this. But to learn more, you can find a link to our page in the show notes below. We hope to see you soon, and enjoy the rest of the show.
Is there any spaces or moments from all of your stays, maybe disregarding your first day, because that probably has extra special meaning, and then maybe leave out Janice's too, so we're not playing favorites.
But say, leave out Cozy Rock, because I know that was your favorite.
The same thing, yeah.
That really like stick out to you, as whether it was like the space, whether it was the scenery, whether it was the decor, the design.
God, there's so
I mean,
many.
you were just talking about Warner's.
Oh man, Warner's
Oh,
Camp,
that's cool.
that place feels like home to me.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. Amy, oh God,
Yeah.
they're so good. I mean, maybe it's our interior decor is very similar,
We have
but
yeah.
I mean, oh God, I could go through the whole list. I swear I'm being truthful here. I would say almost every single place we've shot is special, because it's just like, I can't believe I even get to do this.
Yeah.
Like, every single space is just like, has like a special memory, because it's all so fun, and we get to meet such interesting people that we would have never met before. I don't know. They're all so amazing to me.
The Piazza Torre.
Oh, well, yeah. We went to Italy in September, and we got to shoot a couple of really unique spaces out there. And it was really fun to just meet somebody in another country just doing the thing, just like we are over here. And it's just so much fun to see it trickling.
But that location and just being out where we were there, that cabin was really fun.
Yeah, and plus his mom was with us, which was really cool.
Yeah, those are all
cool
things
to have family.
that kind of tack on to the experience that make it special.
Yeah.
When you guys had just recently gone to Italy, was that the first time you guys had gone overseas, I guess, for shoots, or had you done that before?
We went to Ireland, and it
But
wasn't
not for
for a
shoot.
shoot. We did a little thing for the Cabin Chronicles when we were there.
Yeah.
Oh,
But
cool.
this was the first one where we like integrated.
Oh, no, that's a lie, because we went to Canada. Sorry, I don't consider Canada like out there. I'm sorry.
I mean, Pete's cabin was one of the first.
Pete. He was the inspiration for Cozy Rock.
Yeah. He was one of the first ones we shot over in Canada.
Yeah, he's what a sweetheart.
And that Italy trip, I flipped through all the story that you guys posted there, and I think while you were there, and might have been some more. I don't know if they made them all to the highlights, but just unreal pictures. I took a trip in Italy in high school, and I think a lot of it's like fading now that it's been,
you got to go back
15 or more years, but your guys' pictures brought a lot of it back. It was awesome.
It was really, really something.
Just want to go back immediately.
Yeah. We kind of we kind of winged driving around the whole country in 3 weeks, and found where we really liked. So now we know where we want to go back.
I want to go back immediately.
Wait, tell us, where should we go?
Everywhere. Lake Como, the mountains, like we were in the pre-Alps.
Yeah. That was
Venice before
was...
it sinks.
Did you guys
as soon as you get off the boat in Venice, it's just like such a sensory overload. It's just like 10 out of 10 recommend.
Oh yeah.
But
did you guys lay this whole trip out yourselves, or did you have recommendations?
Yeah, we did.
You did most of the planning.
Well, we kind of had to like put a big map out on the table and just figure it all out. And I was just like furiously scrolling for Airbnbs, and they were planning like the car.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of a team effort, but we really just we picked a place to go and then just kind of winged it from there.
Yeah.
We
it
had a
was-
few things planned. We went truffle hunting, which was wicked cool.
That was.
But we're not here to talk about our Italy trip. I'm sorry.
Well, at that initial part of the statement there was to ask if there's a cabin culture in Italy, and
Oh, yeah.
how do you think it differs from like the Northeast over here or the North America?
Well, I mean, the obvious was the introduction at every Airbnb.
Yes, that might not be everywhere though. Cabin wise, I'd say like the vibe is there. I mean,
What's
if
that
anything,
intro
it's
about?
like
Oh, just every Airbnb we stayed in, the host met you there, walked you
it's very
around.
different. We're so spoiled
I think
with our
it's-
key boxes here.
I think it's just a different,
Yeah.
they
they like
handed
to
you the-
they like to make it personal, and that's great.
different culture.
I think that's
Yeah.
Janice's dream
But
to be able to do that, right, Janice?
I know I
know.
started hosting in my own house. So that's like my favorite thing about hosting. And it like breaks my heart so much that the most interaction I have with people is like Instagram DMs, Airbnb messages, and the guest. There was one
Yeah.
trip that we drove through the night and the guests were late checking out. And so we overlapped with them. And I swear we were in the cabin for another hour and a half talking because I was so excited to meet guests. And they were on the
kinda nice,
mood.
though.
And it turns out that they were from like they went to the same lake that I did
Aw.
in Maine. And it was just like such a treat. And I was like, why can't this happen every time? They might not have felt the same way, but I did.
Aw.
How
But yeah,
did-
the cabin culture is definitely there in Italy.
Yes.
It's just slightly different.
Yeah.
And there are
Really beautiful places, and the prices over there are so much cheaper.
yeah, they really
It's
are.
crazy.
And so that's so interesting to me because you all have traveled all around the US, now to Italy. How do you notice cabin culture, like West Coast cabin culture versus East Coast cabin culture? Do you notice differences? What's the same no matter where you go about the culture surrounding cabins?
The thing that's the same is that the people who own the places are so passionate.
Absolutely.
Oh my God. They're also such wonderful people. And also, I mean, like, it's all very similar, actually.
Yeah, I can't
It's
even
very
think.
similar.
I can't think of a difference that jumps
They're
out.
fighting the good fight with the community forums. and
Right.
They're doing all the same thing. If anything, I mean, we went to Big Bear, Lake Arrowhead, and Lake Tahoe. And I'd say it's all very similar.
I mean, they have Tahoe was dealing with wildfires, so there's a difference there.
There you go. Yeah, the
Um,
natural disasters out there, that's one huge thing.
Right. So that was a little scary
Yeah,
because that was happening when we were out there.
especially for the owners being so far away and
Yeah.
having to deal with watching a fire creeping towards their homes.
Yeah.
Jeez.
But other than that, from our point of view, I can't think of really much difference.
No.
If you could just tell us
What?
why the Northeast is just a little bit better, that'd be great. Be
There's
honest.
Well, so we haven't explored the Northwest,
Oh, Pacific Northwest, not yet.
not yet. But for the Northeast, I feel like the Northeast, there's more abundance of a rustic vibe, I think, in the Northeast than from what we saw in the Southwest.
Well, right.
or
You
Central.
get from what we can tell,
Yeah.
you get a lot more privacy out here.
Hmm.
Like a lot more privacy.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think the possibility for that as well is a lot higher as well.
Right. Yeah.
And then, I mean, obviously you can't beat the seasons.
Yeah. Exactly.
Can't beat them.
More dramatic seasons.
And I
Is
think
the,
Absolutely.
I would think most of the places are kind of tucked away up in the mountains. Similarly, if it's a cabin style, but I got to imagine there's some like warmer climate cabins too that, as far as design, might open up and be a little bit like more open space design. I'm using great words here, but compared to like the Northeast where it's maybe more closed and cozy and
I mean, where the locations we shot, not necessarily because we were shooting in the mountains.
Yeah.
There were these
I mean,
places.
these places were cozy.
They
Mm.
still get, tons of snow in the winter, and then in the summer it's warm. But it's, I'm sure, there are more like the coastal places
Yeah.
that have more of that kind of design.
What you said
Exactly.
about warm weather makes me think of that cabin that has the bed that like is remote controlled,
Oh, yeah.
and you like, whatever, can like be inside and then go outside. But I
Yeah.
noticed that one going viral among so many photographers at the same time. And it made me think, because Cozy Rock is obviously very small and I struggle to capture it differently every time I'm there and not just capture the same images over and over again. How do you handle that? A lot of the cabins that you go to are photographed a lot by a lot of different photographers. How do you kind of make sure that your photos are unique, capture it differently? How challenging is that for you?
It's not that challenging.
I enjoy it if it's a challenge.
It is a challenge. We have fun with it because, like, at the end of the day, like, we're having a good time doing it.
Yeah. And we will arrive at a cabin that has been shot by other photographers, and it's fun because we had one just at the end of the summer where when we started posting the stories and I was getting DMs from the owner like, I've never seen that angle before, that's such a different angle.
Yeah.
So it's fun. It's definitely fun to approach it just finding an angle that's never been shot.
Yeah, which honestly isn't that difficult.
No. Instead of going in and just shooting the same photo.
Because the reason those photos go viral is because that angle is like killer.
Right.
So, we just got to find the next killer angle.
Yeah. And you
Sounds
all are
easy.
unique in that there's two of you, which not every cabin photographer is. Now, I noticed a difference in your photographs when you came and loved it. I'm curious if that's intentional. Do you all talk strategy before you start? How does that work? And what advantage does that have for the cabin owners to have both of you there versus just one?
We definitely we talk
Oh yeah.
In advance of like what we're going to focus on when we get there. If we're we walk through the space and kind of just discuss
the places where it's obvious that like a person or people will be best suited.
Obviously, yeah, the lifestyle spots, and then where one of us will focus on the grander room.
And honestly, most of the time it'll be like we'll both be off in our separate corners doing our work, and then he'll get an angle and he's like, hey, do you want to be in a photo real quick? And then I'll be in the other room and I'll be like, I need your hands. like we do a lot of that.
Yeah. But yeah, it's definitely there is pre-planning to what each of us will be focusing on at a location. A lot of times it does happen when we arrive and we walk around just to get a feel for it and kind of just discuss that aspect of it. But that's and it's definitely an advantage.
It's an advantage too because we're
sure.
two photographers.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's focusing on the big picture and I'm focusing on the smaller details.
Right.
It's lovely.
That's exactly what I noticed. I think I sent you that message right afterwards. I was like, I love that Chris has these wide angle shots and Pam has gotten all the details that I love about the cabin that would be so easily missed in a wide angle shot.
Right. Yeah, I think it's definitely it's important.
Great balance.
It's important.
Mm-hmm. Hey guys, this is Janice, and in case you haven't figured it out already, we're pretty new at this whole podcasting thing. So it would be a huge help if you wouldn't mind taking a second to leave us a 5-star rating on Spotify or some kind words on Apple Podcasts. This goes a long way in helping other cabin lovers find this conversation and hopefully become a part of it. Thanks so much, and excited to share more with you. Okay, I do have one more question. When we first started talking about this podcast, Sean was outlining different parts of cabin culture for us to be thinking about. And one that he mentioned was cabin fashion. And I immediately laughed and I was like, what are you talking about? What's cabin fashion? So I would love to hear your explanation of what cabin fashion is, which could start with what you're wearing right now.
Well, I don't know if this is a visual podcast, but for the people at home, cabin fashion to me is obviously comfort over anything.
Yes.
Function over fashion.
Yes.
Lots of soft. It's like you're in a cabin. What's the point of wearing jeans? Like, no, but for real though, it's a lot of soft sweaters. I've got this great sweat. I feel like there's a sweater that I own. I should have worn that, because that to me is like the epitome of cabin cozy to me. It's big, it's oversized, it's got holes in it because it's from the 90s. And it's just like you can just lounge in it and get lost in it. And that's what you want.
Yeah, I mean, most of the time I'm wearing something warm, flannel. Most of them have burn holes in it from the bonfire outside that we were having.
You have to be able to run outside and not have to worry about being immediately freezing to get wood.
Yeah, it's function.
And slippers with a sole. You have to have a nice tough bottom slipper for running outside to get wood.
Yes.
That was my biggest adjustment. My slippers were soft bottomed, and I had to immediately go to L Bean and pick up some hard ones.
Yep. Yep.
Honestly, slippers always. Slippers and cozy socks. That's my number one.
Yeah. Slippers are a must for sure.
That's my cabin fashion.
In my head, when I made that statement, it was very much like a comfort and utility thing that kind of represents itself in a fashionable thing. And then also to note, right after Janice questioned me on that, she posted these wild clog slipper things that I was like, this is what I'm talking about. This is cabin fashion right here.
They were Sanitas, which I do think fit really nicely into the cabin fashion category. I can't stop thinking about it now, Sean. And every time someone on Instagram asks me what I'm wearing, and the answer is inevitably the same thing every time, which is I got it at L Bean. I'm like, okay, cabin fashion. I see.
I think the fashionese, I think they call it cabin core. I think that's what the cool people call it these days. At least that's what I heard.
So much to learn.
There's also cottage core, which is kind of aligned with cabin core.
Yeah, cottage core.
Define the difference.
Well, cottage core is definitely like whimsical. You're a fairy in the forest, and cottage core is a lot of large sweaters.
Cottage core.
Cabin core is a lot of like large cozy sweaters, and like I just picture like, you know, if I'm picturing like cabin core, I'm picturing a beautiful woman in a large sweater, and she's got a mug in her hand, and she's wearing a silly hat that's barely on her head in front of a big window.
Yeah, snow falling out the window.
I love this. My first thought of cabin fashion was Pam walking out of the cabin in that one like epic photo you took at Cozy Rock
with the dress.
That shows up everywhere. And it's just you walking out the door, and you do look like, I mean, it's just beautiful.
I have started trying to incorporate a little bit more like for a while I was like lost at sea when it came to like my fashion, and then I discovered Madewell, and suddenly everything made sense to me.
It just takes the right brand. That's how I feel about LL Bean. If you're listening, please sponsor me. Save a lot of money. Guys, this has been so great. I'm so excited for you to come back to Cozy Rock in January.
Yeah,
and I'm so excited to get to talk to you all in person.
This was wonderful.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for joining us. And if you liked what you heard, feel free to leave us a 5-star rating on Spotify or share some of your favorite parts over on Apple Podcast in a review. If you have feedback or suggestions for the future, you can always find us on Instagram at Cozy Rock Cabin and The Chalet Frame, spelled the CHALA frame. Looking forward to next week. Thanks for joining us.